So what was your relationship like with Vince? Did you talk with him much or no?
Yeah, I had a couple private meetings with him. I only really I spoke to him after matches. You're in Gorilla, you say, hey, thank you for the match and that kind of stuff. But I really only spoke to him when I had something important to tell him. There's a few times where you say some things to a writer and the story, or he might not take it to Vince. So if there's something you're really passionate about, you take it to Vince. So when I was transitioning from, I didn't want to do the Sheik character anymore. I want to do this Daivari De Niro thing. That was something that I took straight to Vince. I went and knocked on his door and had a meeting with him and said, this is where I see my character going. And I think it would, do better for the show and all that kind of stuff. And he was all about it. And I had a few more like one-on-one meetings with him, but they were always pleasant. I never had a bad experience with Vince at all.
So, so did he have any input into the decision to send you and your brother out into Saudi Arabia at the greatest Royal Rumble, waving an Iranian flag? And
yeah. So from what I was told, that was requested from the Saudi prince. Whether that's true or not, I don't know.
Wow.
But yeah, I mean, he books the show. At the end of the day, it was his idea, and us, or me particularly, being fairly new at the time, like, you're not going to say no to stuff. And all this Saudi stuff was like a big deal. It was a big money deal. It was backstage, they made it seem like how important these Saudi shows are to the company. So it wasn't something they're doing the very first one. And as a cruiserweight, I'm not going to be like, no, I'm not doing this type of thing. Like, you just kind of have to do what you're told, or at least that's how I felt about it. And the only reason my brother came is, some people may not know this, but my neck was injured at the time. Like, I was completely on the injured list. And they called me one day and said, hey, can we get your brother's information? Because we'll just send him to go do this thing. And that was a situation where I was kind of like, oh, damn, maybe we can do something together. And I told them, I said, hey, if you guys will let me, like, I'll still go too, injured or not, and maybe me and my brother can do it together. And they were all about it. So that was the reason why, if you ever go back and watch it, he took all the bumps. I just got like pushed onto my ass and rolled out of the ring. And then he took all the bumps because I wasn't cleared to take any bumps at that point. So that's why they brought my brother along too. It was looking back on it in hindsight, and like I said, everything hindsight's 2020. Like, I wish we didn't do it. I think, and you never want to disrespect people. And it's not like people in the United States were upset about it, but people in Iran, people in Saudi Arabia, they didn't like it. And I said, my goal was never to offend anybody. You never want to do that with your wrestling. I really care about wrestling. I really care about my work. I don't want to offend anybody or stuff like that. So, that was why I took it upon myself to put out that apology. Nobody told me to do it. The company didn't ask me and all that stuff. I said, I'm going to do it myself because I want to make this right. If it truly offended people and they're not understanding that this is just a show, then I'll say, I'm sorry. It wasn't really a big deal to me to apologize for it.
Yeah, the geopolitics of it were way over my head, but I just knew watching it, I was like, this is way more precarious than walking out into Turner Hall in Milwaukee.
Yeah, right.
Hey, you fat rednecks, you love your fast cars and big women. Yeah. That's a very different scenario,
Yeah, it is. And like I said, and the only part that I take partial blame for is just being uneducated on how big of the tensions are between like Iran and Saudi Arabia. Like you said, the geopolitics were a little bit over my head. Yeah. I didn't know, because here's the thing, it's pro wrestling. At the end of the day, how many like kind of offensive gimmicks and character and segments have there been? There's been tons. I didn't know this one was such a big deal that it was really going to like really offend a lot of people in those countries. So that was why, like I said, I put out that apology, because I said, oh, like, if this is one of those things that people are truly upset about, then like, yeah, I apologize. We definitely shouldn't have done that.
And you got like death threats coming out of this.
Yeah. Well, I mean, to this day, every once in a while, I'll still get a DM on Instagram out of the blue about like, F you, you piece of S, and all that kind of stuff. So I was like, oh, damn, like people are really upset about it. But again, I like to let people know, like, look, that was wrestling. The cameras are on. It was a character. That's not how I really feel. I'm not really about that. I'm a guy from Minnesota,
Yeah, no, I know. That's why I was watching it and thinking that I was like, this is a big step away from where you cut heat promos in the Midwest.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
This is next level stuff here right now. So you explained what happened with the injury there. I was actually going to ask about that. I was also going to ask you guys, obviously Mansoor was like the big guy to get over there. He's getting a big push right now. What's it like? What is this guy? I don't really know anything about this guy. What do you think of Mansoor? How is it working with him?
I think he's a great guy. Like I don't really know him too well either, because after that I didn't see him for a long time, and then just this recent run of when 205 during the pandemic hooked up with NXT. That's when I started hanging out with him a lot more. But no, he's a great kid. He's really young. He's very agile. I think he has a very bright future ahead of him. I hope like he's not too much locked into just like only being like this Saudi Arabian guy and that's it. I hope he gets to be more than that and actually just be just a more regular member of like the WWE roster. So time will tell on that. But I think he has a very bright future. He's really nice and he's always willing to listen and learn. So I got nothing but good things to say about Mansoor.
So you were obviously with 205 Live basically the entire time the existence of 205 Live. So being there as long as you were, was there ever any talk of maybe giving you an NXT run or trying something out with you on Raw or SmackDown before, unfortunately your release came up here a couple of weeks ago?
Yeah, not really. Obviously there was one draft in particular where a lot of the guys did get called up, like I think like Ali and Drew and Humberto. And that was the one time where I really started pushing if I could get like moved to SmackDown or Raw. But the nice thing was like, because we were on main roster deals, like we were still getting paid very well to be on 205 Live. So it wasn't like, oh, if I get moved to Raw or SmackDown, I'm going to make exponentially more. Like you might in the long run if you have a big run or something, but I was still being taken care of very well on 205 Live. So I wasn't upset about that. But I did think that all the tag work that me and Tony had been doing during this pandemic and how many people in the office were telling us how good of work we were doing and, just seeing the feedback on Twitter and stuff like that, people saying how much they were enjoying our tag matches. I thought this was going to be a time where we were finally going to parlay into either like NXT tag team or move on to Raw or SmackDown. Had this obviously, we got released before the crowds came back, but once the crowds started coming back and all that kind of stuff, I wanted to give a formal pitch to Vince McMahon about either Vince or Hunter about using me and Tony formally as a team.
Okay. Yeah. I was just curious because, I mean, like you said, you spent a lot of time there. You reinvented your character. That was cool to hear that Vince embraced the new version of you.
Yeah, he was all about it.
Yeah. So how did you find out that you were no longer with the company? What was the story there?
So obviously, this was the third wave of cuts. There was I think it was in May or something, or when Samoa Joe and all those Iconics and all them got released, and there was the other guys like Braun and Buddy and Alistair, and then us. So, and then there's obviously the COVID releases too, April of 2020.
Yeah.
So there was tons of rumors amongst the boys about hey, they're doing budget cuts, they're doing this, they're doing that. So I was bracing for it just a little bit because you never know. And especially when Samoa Joe, the Iconics, Braun Strowman, when those guys got let go, I was kind of like, oh shit, it could be anybody. Even Braun Strowman's a pretty big deal to this company and they let him go. Same with Samoa Joe, same with the Iconics, same with Tommy End, and they're letting those guys go. So I said, at this point, it could be anyone. So just brace yourself. Now, on the flip side, I was a little bit surprised because me and Tony were wrestling every single week. There were some guys who got released who weren't wrestling as much or they weren't on TV as much. We were working every single week, and we were working really hard too. This pandemic era of wrestling, no one can deny it. It sucks having these little crowds. It's not fun. And even though 205 wasn't cared about too much by the office, me and Tony were going out there and busting our asses every single opportunity we were given. So we were still going really hard. So and on top of that, the office was telling us, hey, you guys are doing a great job. So that's where the surprise came in a little bit, just because I was like, damn, I'm doing good work, doing good, consistent work. I'm booked every week. I figured I wouldn't be one of the people, but I was on vacation. I was in Las Vegas on vacation, and Tony texted me and said, hey, I got released. And shortly after, I got a phone call as well, too. So I was kind of like, all right.
At least you were within cocktail reach, if that's kind of your...
I was at breakfast having mimosas, getting ready to go out to the pool. So I was like, well, let's go get drunk.
That makes it a little bit easier there. So what do you want to do now, Ariya? Do you want to do a big indie loop? Do you want to go to a bigger platform? Ideally, where do you see your next steps here?
Definitely continue wrestling. I definitely want to do some independence, and I'm very open about wrestling with either AEW or Impact or New Japan, MLW. I mean, there's so many companies now, so it's kind of you just have to go talk to them and see who's interested and stuff like that. But getting back to the independents, wrestling in Minnesota again is going to be really nice because on top of a lot of the new indie talent, there's a lot of new Minnesota guys that came out of my brother and Ken Anderson's school. So there's a lot of talented guys here in Minnesota who I'm excited to wrestle with. But yeah, over the other thing too is my 90 days isn't over till September 23rd. So sometimes that puts things on hold a little bit. A lot of people will be like, just let me know when your 90 days are up and we can talk more officially then. But like I said, for the time being, I'm just enjoying this little bit of time off that I get.
Yeah, I was excited to see Eric Cannon pop up on AEW Dark recently.
Yeah, that was awesome. Yeah, I was very happy for him. It was very, very underrated guy who I feel like should have gotten bigger opportunities a long time ago.
Hey, well, he's here now. Look at Eddie Kingston, right?
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Yeah, anything's possible. All right. Hey, Ariya, I want to thank you so much for taking the time. Very excited to see what your next steps are going to hold. Where do you want to send people to find you, follow you, support you, all those wonderful things?
Yeah, just my Twitter and Instagram. They're both at Ariya Daivari. I do plan on opening up a Twitch eventually. I kind of have an idea of a lot of guys like to do like those RF video shoot interviews. They're like 8 hours long. So rather than doing that, I wanted to start a Twitch channel and maybe slowly start telling my story like topic by topic, whether it's, hey, this week we're going to talk about the CWC. This week we're going to talk about Saudi Arabia and stuff like that. So I'm still in the process of getting that worked out, but that is something I want to get going as a Twitch channel. I know Tony Nese just started one as well too, so people can check that out. But yeah, just keep your eyes on my social media. That's where I'm doing a lot of my stuff.